Neighbors describing a tense standoff as a woman runs away from her husband as he's shooting her. Hear how the whole situation unfolds.
Late night negotiations aimed at ending the government shutdown. How did we get here, and does the deal stand a chance of passing?
He's the little boy who stole your heart, and tonight the family celebrating the milestone they thought they would never reach after fighting for months for a kidney transplant for baby AJ. Tonight, GBI investigating two different officer-involved shootings in Metro Atlanta this weekend. One of them at a home in Rockdale County where a man's accused of killing his wife, leading to a standoff. Within the last hour, investigators identified that suspect, who is now in custody. His name, Latron Jamone Bell. The victim, Lisa LaShawn Samuel Bell. Ryan Kruger was out at the scene earlier and walks us through what happened.
It was just before noon whenever neighbors say they heard a series of gunshots coming from this house. The next thing they see, the woman who lives here running away from her husband. He's chasing her down the street, shooting at her. They make it about a block away, then hear what happens next.
At that point, I looked out the window and I saw a black male chasing a black female through our yard. They ran down through the wooded area there, and before the deputy could arrive, we heard one more pop. I said, "Hey, dude, what are you doing?" And he looked at me, and he was very incoherent, and he had the gun, and he didn't point the gun at me, but he raised it up like this.
When you said you looked at him, he looked incoherent, what does that mean? Like
he was audibleizing, but you really couldn't tell what he was saying. And when I yelled at him, he looked at me like, and he just held the gun up like this, but he didn't really say anything. He just looked at me like he didn't know where he's at, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I don't know if he didn't realize what he had done at that point, or if he was in shock. So she was laying back down there. We couldn't see her, but we heard the shot, and he was just walking away from the situation basically. And he got to right there at the berm over there, and that's when the officer confronted him from out here. There was probably 10 to 12 officers out here, and there was one behind my car with their gun drawn. There was 3 cars out here with their guns drawn, and they had 2 officers squatted over here in the brush with full SWAT gear on. So it was pretty harrowing. So he was coming up through this way right there where that crime scene tape is, and they were out here. And
is that all your property?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
So,
so they had to come in through around behind him and get him to try to surrender, which he never did. So they had no choice but to shoot him. Fortunately, it was with beanbags, and physically he was fine.
Hey, Ryan, what kind of charges is the suspect facing now?
So he is definitely facing the murder charges for allegedly killing his wife, but he's also facing 3 charges of cruelty to children. That's because the couple's 3 kids, ages 7, 10, and 17, they were all inside the house whenever this first fight and those first gunshots were fired. Thankfully, the kids are okay. None of them were hurt. Family members are taking care of them tonight, but certainly a traumatic ordeal for those 3 young kids.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Yep.
Hey, tonight we're waiting for GBI to tell us the names of a suspect and an officer involved in another shooting, this one in Dunwoody. Police say the armed man robbed a Kroger in Johns Creek yesterday morning, then headed to a Dunwoody Walmart. Investigators say a Dunwoody officer shot him after the man refused to comply with commands and started getting out of his car. He died later at the hospital. The officer is now on paid leave as GBI investigates, which is normal in these types of cases. Some breaking news on Capitol Hill. The Senate now says it won't vote on a proposal to end the government shutdown until noon tomorrow. That vote was originally supposed to happen at 1 a.m., but lawmakers are pushing it back as both sides negotiate. Thousands of federal workers could be furloughed if that vote fails. But does this latest proposal stand any chance of actually passing tomorrow? Natisha Lance is walking through how we got here and what happens next, Natisha.
Well, Vinny, there may be a glimmer of hope for a deal to be made. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell met for the first time today since the shutdown on Friday. A group of bipartisan senators have also been working on a deal that would address some of those outstanding issues Congress can't seem to agree on. One of those things being a 2-year spending bill, another one agreement on DACA and extending the low-income children's health insurance program. That plan was presented to leaders on both sides. It's unclear at this point if it will have any traction, but at least it has broken the ice at this point after a lot of finger pointing behind the scenes coming from both sides.
This shutdown was a political miscalculation of gargantuan proportions.
This is the Trump shutdown. Only President Trump can end it.
I'm not asking anybody to trust anybody. I'm asking people to grow up.
If you're like me, you're wondering, how did we even get to this point? The House passed a bill last week, mostly along party lines, to fund the government until February 16th. It needed 60 votes in the Senate to advance the bill, but 45 Senate Democrats and 5 Senate Republicans rejected it, leading to the shutdown. A sticking point for most Democrats was the bill didn't include an agreement on DACA. Tonight, the battle continues on social media, with the president tweeting, "If stalemate continues, Republicans should go to 51% nuclear option and vote on real long-term budget." But one thing Republicans and Democrats seem to agree on is the Senate vote rule that requires 60 votes to pass legislation, making President Trump's suggestion unlikely. Senator Chuck Schumer continues to blame the president and his tweets by using hashtag Trump shutdown, while Republicans like Georgia Representative Karen Handel joined other party colleagues with hashtag Schumer shutdown. The impact is felt wide. Thousands of federal employees considered to be non-essential will be placed on furlough, meaning no work on Monday. The military is considered essential. They will still report for duty, but troops, including those in combat, might not be paid until after the shutdown ends. National parks, zoos, museums, some of those may be closed, just like Ebenezer Baptist Church was this afternoon. One thing you don't have to worry about, though, is your mail. That is considered essential.
Now, many of us might recall this isn't the first time the government has shut down. In 2013, they shut down for 16 days. That was when Republicans wanted to strip funding from the Affordable Care Act at that time. Vinny.
Now, Natasha, if the Senate does pass this bill tomorrow, then what happens?
The House will still have to vote on the bill, so we could be back at this again. We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening and if they can come to some sort of agreement.
All right, that's their job, isn't it? Last time I checked, they're supposed to take care of us. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, let's send things over to Ron now for some other big headlines in tonight's Speed Feed, starting with some breaking news you got in Philly tonight.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Eagle fans are celebrating tonight because their team is headed back to the Super Bowl. They haven't been there since 2004, and we have some live video to prove that celebration just coming into the newsroom. Let's get straight to it. It basically shows a sea of people there. The Eagles considered to be one of the biggest underdogs in years, with the Vegas odds putting the team at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. This is back in September. More on the plays that got them there. We're going to talk about that coming up in sports, and who they're going to be facing in the big game. Of course, the Evil Empire. Right now, signs of recovery in California nearly 2 weeks after deadly mudslides sweep through the Montecito area. Officials say traffic began moving along US 101, a key coastal highway for California. It started shortly after noon today. All lanes were blocked by boulders, debris, and tons of mud. Brought down by the powerful storm on January 9th, at least 21 people killed in that storm, hundreds of homes destroyed.
In many ways, the Statue of Liberty is symbolic for what's going on right now in Washington. The issue is about immigration.
There he is, New York's governor, standing firm, vowing to reopen the Statue of Liberty tomorrow, despite the government shutdown that Natisha was talking about. Governor Andrew Cuomo says the state will pick up the $65,000 a day tab to keep the Lady Liberty open up to visitors. The landmark was closed this weekend after Congress failed to pass legislation to keep the federal government up and running. And Vinny, as you know, a lot of other major historical monuments shut down, including the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, but I don't think that's going to matter right now because the fans are thinking about their glorious Eagles.
They are. Let's hope they keep it safe tonight in Philly, and congratulations to our friend Chesley, right? Biggest Eagle fan around. Thanks so much.
Sure.
A decorated military veteran murdered in cold blood. Now his family may be one step closer to getting justice against the teen accused of pulling the trigger.